Hello everybody, welcome to the I Am IT Geek YouTube channel. My name is Shabazz and as ever, I am the IT Geek. Welcome back to another video. This is not, again, I have to clarify this because I'm doing multiple sort of series at the same time. This is not a AZ700 episode. We're back to the NerdioCon 2023 little mini series that I'm doing, building up to the actual event coming at the end of February. Now, remember the last episode I did a little bit on Vadim, who is the CEO of Nerdio, and I introduced him and did a bit of a spotlight on him because he is obviously the CEO and he's going to be doing quite a few sessions at NerdioCon. And I think I mentioned at the end of that episode that I've got a special guest for a podcast episode that I'm doing. So that is today's episode. So a bit of a podcast, and I invited someone that I funnily enough bumped into and met at NerdioCon 2022. We'll be talking about that. But let me introduce him. Let me get him in. I'd like to welcome Mike Starnes. Mike.
Hey, Shabazz.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks. Nice to be called a special guest.
You, my special guest, mate. You're always special. Always special guest for me, mate. Mike, do you want to just do a quick introduction, mate, just for those people who are watching that might not know who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm commercial director at a company called Foundation IT. We're an infrastructure services business that seem to have fallen into a niche around AVD and Azure infrastructure in particular. And we provide professional and managed services around those two areas principally for a range of businesses, large and small. I've been in this space for, 20 odd years now, right back to the days of Presentation Server and Citrix and Horizon View and
Nice.
those tech. So I've lived and breathed that era, and it's certainly an exciting new one. So I'm certainly enjoying the AVD side of things now.
Excellent. And as I mentioned, we obviously met at last year's event, and
We did.
For me it was quite funny because obviously it's in Cancun, Mexico, but Nerdio as a company obviously focus in America. They've got starting to build in the UK and Europe now, but so there were mainly American people at the event.
Yeah.
So when I saw two Brits, I was just like, there was yourself and a friend of ours. I was just like, totally went towards you. Like, oh man, some Brits. Hi guys, I'm from England.
You tagged on. It was annoying in the end, Shabazz, but yeah.
I had to. So I remember it was, I think it's Neil McLaughlin who works at Nerdio,
That's right,
a good friend of ours. He introduced us, but that's kind of how we met. And yeah, we did kind of had our own little circle.
It was good fun, wasn't it? It was great fun, and I think we learned a lot, laughed a lot. It was good. We had a lot of fun.
Exactly. What I'm interested to understand, Mike, to start with anyway, we'll get on to I do want to talk about last year's event as well, but a little bit to understand around your experience, especially how Nerdio specifically has benefited your clients with their AVD specifically. What benefits has it brought them?
Yeah. I made a fairly bold statement not so long ago, Shabazz, to say that we won't engage with an AVD deployment now unless Nerdio is a prerequisite for it. We see it as that important to the way that we deploy, manage, or at least hand over the management of AVD. Our relationship with Nerdio goes back quite a long way now, actually. It even predates certainly the current portfolio. It predates Nerdio for AVD or Windows Virtual Desktop, I think it was at the time. We first engaged with them because we were playing around with AVD in kind of preview. Nerdio kind of was there as this kind of tool set, and the bits that it did for Windows Virtual Desktop was part of a much bigger product stack. And they were like, can we not just have this little bit? And they were like, no, that bit doesn't exist at the moment. So we do pride ourselves on a bit on sort of sowing the seed to say, we really need just these bits for Windows Virtual Desktop because there's a bunch of stuff that it just wasn't doing. And it was difficult to manage. You need to be a PowerShell guru. Not everybody is, of course. So our relationship started there, and we got a fairly early win with Nerdio from a client that was an early adopter of Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows Virtual Desktop as it was then. And they contacted and just said it's a sort of 2,500 seat insurance business, and they said this environment is unmanageable. We don't have an operations framework for how we we're going to look after this, and they were traditional Horizon View users. And we said, okay, well, let's look at how Nerdio is going to add value. And our relationship with Nerdio has kind of gone from strength to strength from there. But principally, our clients are getting value today in a number of ways, and we are as a managed service provider, right? Because we use Nerdio to manage our clients. But principally, cost management. I think they're selling it very much on a cost management message, and I see that in two parts. One is the raw cost savings it's driving with Azure consumption. Just very simply the ability to scale up, scale down, use auto startup, shut down, start on demand, those kind of things to ultimately put money in the client's pocket, not into Microsoft's. That's principally there, but also that kind of that unquantifiable arena of how much does it cost you to manage this stuff without Nerdio? Because the time saving that our clients get by using Nerdio as a single pane of glass to manage and orchestrate is significant, but difficult to quantify, particularly if you don't have an alternative to kind of baseline it against. So cost and efficiency is certainly one major area that it almost sells itself on that basis. And then I think the other side of it is the speed with which we can make change happen or just deploy it in the first place. Our route to getting you from no AVD to AVD is significantly shortened using Nerdio as our principal deployment tool. And then everything around that in terms of doing certain things, whether it be updating images or running scripts or managing applications through there, using app masking or whatever it might be, those things are difficult to do without Nerdio. So the operational benefits, the cost benefits that our clients have seen far outweigh the cost of Nerdio licensing.
From a technical perspective as well, from my own view, is when it comes to AVD, like you said, in itself, if you just look at it as a VDI platform, it's very, very small. What makes it great is all the other stuff you put into it, the monitoring, the automation, blah blah. But that's not AVD. That you need skills as a techie to you need to know as your automation, you need to know as your backup, as your monitor. They're different skills, so you need to be quite technical and in a way certified within the Azure administrator space. So it takes away that concern for clients as well, doesn't it? Because
for sure,
all they need to really know is Nerdio, because it's all like you said, all that good stuff is all in one platform.
Everything you'd want to do in that AVD environment, you can access via that Nerdio console.
Exactly.
And I think, you're right. You cannot underestimate the breadth and depth of skills you need to look after that feed water, the AVD environment. Nerdio takes those headaches away. And as I say, that's why it's become an absolute prerequisite for any AVD engagement. If you're not prepared to talk to us about using Nerdio alongside that, then we're probably not a good fit for you, because I think you're going to come unstuck somewhere down the line, I'm afraid, or you're just going to find it. In certain instances, particularly when you look at the GPU SKUs, I actually think that the cost of not having something like Nerdio to help you manage cost and hours that it's on actually means that direction is pretty untenable, because the cost of keeping a GPU SKU machine on all the time is pretty significant. Whereas if you can scale it and manage the time that it's on, actually a total cost of ownership study on that is actually pretty attractive.
No, that's good. Just good to get another insight into, especially from the industry. Like you said, you work with clients quite a bit, and we've specifically around that area. So it's good to understand, what benefits you've seen it bring your clients. Just want to move on to sort of NerdioCon. That's kind of what we're here to speak about specifically. Yes. So, like I said, that's just where we met.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
What were your highlights from last year? Again, it was roughly literally a date to a day the year ago. So, what were some of your highlights from last year?
So
apart
really,
from the sun.
Yeah, I was going to say, aside from the fact that it's in Cancun, aside from the fact that it's very nice weather and that you're next to a private beach, all of those things aside, and it's all inclusive, so the beer or lemonade in some cases free, right? Aside from those things, which we can't overlook, I loved it last year. I thought it was a great event. I thought it was really well organised. but principally the things I enjoyed about it, firstly, the people. There are some fantastic characters there. It's where we met, as you've already said. We wouldn't have necessarily met and been able to network if it wasn't for that. If you look at the people that were keynote speakers last year,
yes,
there's some heavy hitters, right, that we heard from. Yeah. So not just from Nerdio. So we had Joseph and Vadim obviously speaking throughout the 3 days.
Scott Manchester as well.
Scott Manchester, Cam, Rob Ray at Datto. I know he's moved on since we're heavily invested in Datto, so listening to Rob Ray talk. Some of the keynote speakers were fantastic, and they did a really good job of, I think, mixing up the combination of this is what's on the roadmap. This is Jay McBain gave a really interesting sort of industry, where it's going and stuff like that. So there's a really nice mixture of different types of education, roadmap, industry, other perspectives, different vendors talking. So, but those connections with people that perhaps are difficult to do otherwise, and the education that you got from those keynotes, I thought was fantastic.
I think I said this in the diary that I did towards the end, and I'll put the link to that in my description. But the Jay McBain session was my favourite out of everything, just because
I remember you saying that. Yeah,
it wasn't just nerdy; it was just like industry. Where's the industry going? Because they was like saying, is Nerdio? He was like, he actually challenged like, is Nerdio going to be like a little thing, or is it actually where can it actually go? And he looked at like compared to Citrix and all those other vendors that in that VDI space and. Yeah. What's kind of happened this last year with Citrix, he kind of called out, he kind of predicted it, and that just shows the level of insight that he has. And he predicted and the Nerdio is just going to grow from strength to strength. And again, look at the last year, it has done.
Agree. I mean, just some of those sessions were really, really valuable. And then I can't then equally some of the ad hoc conversations I had with well-connected people in the industry, present company included, a lot of American partners there, a lot of people from around the world. And why that was interesting was actually you could have a really sensible, non-compete conversation with people that are in your world. It's not threatening because they're not after your clients. You're just having a really frank conversation about how you find the industry and what are the issues that you're experiencing in your world. And the US does tend to be a little bit further ahead than us in terms of adoption. So learning from those people again, I found really valuable. Introduced a bunch of new vendors. We didn't know or have anything to do with people like Huntress before.
Yes, Huntress, yeah.
Subsequently become a Huntress partner and are doing some business with them. We now use Huntress internally for our own stuff. So just being educated as to the ecosystem vendors that play in this space and making sure that we fill the gaps. That's great. It was good fun, right? We live in a really serious world. So I'm not afraid to admit that we had a lot of fun. We laughed a lot. There was a plenty to enjoy. They put the band on and the stuff they did in the evenings and the barbecues and the food and all of that stuff just means that from a health and well-being point of view, it was just a nice place to be.
It was. And again, you touched on it right at the start. The organisation, the way was it Natasha? I think was heading it up last year. I'm not sure if she's heading up this year or not, but I know she's going to be there. But again, just the organisation, it's just so smooth. Even like getting picked up from the airport and to get.
I won't mention customs, but everything else was fine.
They can't control that.
They can't. That's not Nerdio's fault. No.
I really enjoyed the access, the access to people like Vadim and Scott Manchester. The fact that you can just pretty down to earth people. Vadim's just Vadim's just very, very down to earth, and just walk up to him and chat to him about anything. And it was just, I like that aspect. Like the networking aspect is one of my favourite aspects of it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting you say that. You spend quite a lot of time with these people: Natasha, Tony, Kevin, Vadim, Joseph. You spend quite a lot of time with those people, either engaging them on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on a Teams call. Getting FaceTime with these people, there's nothing like it, right? So
exactly.
Working, just getting to meet these people in the flesh is really great.
Exactly. Don't forget our 7 a.m. swimming sessions as well. I think we're all jet lagged and no one acclimatized. I didn't acclimatize anyway.
I think I missed every one of those, didn't I?
Did you? I remember you coming late to one of them, I think.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right.
I never acclimatized, so I was getting up at stupid o'clock and I had not to do, so I'd go swimming.
That's when I was writing my blog. I was writing my blog at 4 a.m. Because I couldn't sleep. So
I remember. So moving on to this year. So what is it? Is there anything that kind of stands? Obviously, the networking aspect's going to be great. It looks like it's twice the size. If I'm honest with you, as an event, it looks huge. What are you looking forward to? Would you say this year? Is there anything that stands out?
We could just repeat that same list for sure.
Yeah,
The people, the networking opportunity, the education, the like you say, it looks bigger. There's still some heavy hitting keynote speakers that are going to be on stage. The breakout sessions, which
more breakout sessions this year,
and the diversity of those breakout sessions. There genuinely seems to be something for everybody in that. There's some deeply technical sessions around not just Nerdio and AVD, but things like Intune. They're going to look at Intune and some of the stuff that sits around the ecosystem of AVD. There's some business-led tracks as well, so thinking about, okay, how do I position AVD? How can I sell Azure-based services? What does it look like to grow an MSP, which I think is really interesting. And of course the vendor pitches, and there'll be some specifics that perhaps we're not touching upon there. But the breakout sessions look really fantastic this year, and I think I've heard this right, that they're going to repeat some of the sessions. So if you can't choose between two, some of the key ones are going to be repeated twice, which I think which is really good. So breakout sessions in particular, I'm looking forward to. I believe I might be speaking or being, I'm involved in at least one of those, Shabazz.
Nice.
A use case on AVD in
various
circumstances. Yeah, you don't feel like you have to come, but please come.
As long as it doesn't clash with mine, because I'm also I'm actually speaking. I'll definitely heckle at the back.
Yeah, do, and I'll be dead silent for yours, I promise. Breakout sessions definitely. I think Scott is doing a session around the roadmap for Windows 365 and AVD.
Yeah, saw that.
I'm in particular interested to hear what he's got to say about Windows 365, because being completely honest, I'm still struggling to see where that fits. Certainly in our portfolio, I can see there's a use case for it. But I think commercially and from a proposition point of view, AVD still wins out for us in discussions.
Yeah, but I think, like you said, the use case, I think the commercial aspect is part of that, and I'm still not seeing the benefit. I'm still not seeing where it.
Yeah.
Unless you have literally zero IT.
Yeah. If you've got sub 10 users and no ability to look after it, then I think it makes sense. But it doesn't scale at the enterprise level like AVD does. Yeah. So I'm interested to see what he's got to say about that and where he sees the positioning in the market. Obviously, Vadim and Joseph will almost certainly do a good job of saying this is what's next for Nerdio, and that's interesting because I don't know about you. There's an awful lot of development going on with Microsoft native tools around scaling. And it might be a few years behind Nerdio, but Nerdio have got to stay ahead of the game, right? They've got to continue to develop, because Microsoft will try and catch up, or at least try and do some things that may well start to compete with them. So that's definitely of interest.
And I mean, again, personally for me, I'm very much looking forward to speaking, because last year, as you were, I was awarded that the Nerdio NVP, so one of the first three, and a good friend of ours, Toby, was as well.
Toby, yeah.
So this year I'm looking forward to going as an existing one and actually presenting. So me and Neil are going to be presenting around application deployment. And again, it's similar, like you said, that similar list. I'm looking forward to being able to access and speak to people like Vadim, and not even about Nerdio, but just generally these, he's the CEO of Nerdio.
Yeah,
Yeah, just forget Nerdio for a minute. Just understand where they see the industry going from an
yeah,
industry perspective, because the industry's global. You know, and even you've got people like Scott Manchester, Gabriella Schuster, who now works for Nerdio. She was
of
Microsoft
course.
last year.
Yeah,
She's going to
yeah.
be there, and just understanding from these people who are in such key positions
Mm,
in
mm.
this industry. And again, Jay McBain as well. Really want to definitely be going to his session.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Me too. And I forgot to mention that last year, and there's something similar this year, although I don't think it's been hosted by Vadim. Vadim did a breakout session, really telling us about his history and how Nerdio kind of came to be, and the fact it was
right.
born out of an MSP,
Yeah, I remember
and
that
it
one.
was very much focused on what it took to take his MSP business from basically zero to building up to a profitable enterprise. And for us as an MSP, that I found that fascinating. Just understanding and
Of
talking to him
course, yeah.
offline, like you say, about business, throwing questions at him about, we're thinking about doing this as an MSP. What do you think? These are influential and certainly cleverer people than I am. So why not tap into that intellect?
Well, and that's it, and that's that whole networking piece that we've mentioned. It's just good to have the opportunity to have access to these, because again, unless you're on social media like LinkedIn or anything like, you're not really going to get. But still having a type conversation
Mm,
or even a team call, just having them in person, even over like a drink or dinner or
yeah.
whatever, it's just so much relaxed, and you can just have much more intuitive conversation, in my opinion. So that's kind of what I'm really looking to do.
100%. And let's not forget that Nerdio has gone from strength to strength to strength to strength. Look at the number of people, look at the hires that have happened over the course of the last 18 months. The opportunity to get FaceTime in the early days with Vadim and Joseph, not that challenging. As they've grown, that opportunity. I mean, to be fair, they're still very accessible.
Yeah, 100%,
If
100%.
more so than other businesses that are going through a similar period of growth. But again, to get the FaceTime with people like that is a you don't get that opportunity with every vendor and at every event, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And and I don't know if you've seen it. There's a partner. There's like a partner thing going on the Wednesday. Have you seen that Wednesday afternoon? They're basically
Well,
hosting like the vendors or the sponsors are hosting an afternoon, which looks interesting, is what I'll say.
I haven't seen the comms on it. I had a rumor which came from our friend Tracy at Huntress
Right.
that there may well be some sort of jungle excursion or something like that, which sounded fascinating. I don't know whether every vendor's going to do a slightly different
I heard
spot
water
thing.
sports. I heard water sports like jet
Uh,
skiing and stuff like that.
okay,
So,
interesting.
but
Okay.
we'll be busy working, obviously.
I mean, I
So,
don't have time for any of that.
no,
No
no.
time for jungle excursions or
Listen, it's
water
part of
sports.
the event. It's part of the event, so I'm not feeling guilty. Mike, that's been really great catching up with you, mate. And
And you,
it's
mate,
only a
yeah.
small catch up. The
Absolutely.
proper catch up will be in so when this comes out, it will be a week left. Sweet Moses, yep, it'll be a week left.
Wow.
So I will be packing straight after this is published. So yeah, it's been great catching up, mate. We'll catch up properly in person. Obviously, thank you for your insights into your experiences. Talking about what you've done with Nerdio, and
Absolute
also
pleasure.
talking about the last year's event and this year's event. So. I'm planning on doing some content while I'm out there, so I'm more than likely grab you for a quick interview for my diary that I'm going to be doing off the back of NerdioCon 2023. So to my viewers, you will see Mike again. Don't worry.
Oh, you
Um,
poor things. I'll make sure I've not had a beer before he collars me.
the slur in your speech.
Yeah.
Excellent. So yeah, I'll put Mike's socials in the description. Also, a link to the company's socials as well. Foundation IT, I'll put their website and everything in the description. And also a link to my diary from last year. So thank you everybody for watching. But up until next time, goodbye.